Get your earballs ready. Welcome to the Gregg and Tim Show podcast. Take time to sit back and relax and enjoy the show. Here are your hosts, Gregg and Tim.
Hey, welcome back to the Gregg and Tim Show. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Apparently, if I sing a song,
it's not copywritten. That's right.
But if we play a song, it is
copywritten. Exactly. We did a segment back in the day, which was Name That Tune.
Yeah.
And the whole show was copywritten.
Right.
Because we played 3 songs or 4 songs.
Don't tell anybody.
It's linked above Tim's head if you want to watch it. That's not part of the best of because it wasn't.
It's just
great.
an airplane flying over my head, but it's still.
No, it's not an airplane.
It's a glitch.
I don't have that technology.
You can do like
it's just a bar. It's just a bar that goes across and says the name of the episode.
Anyway, so we want to
talk about a whole bunch of other stuff that was in our favorites.
It's funny. We've done 46 episodes so far. How many episodes are we at? 45? 44? 45? 46.
This is our 48th.
That's great. Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm.
48 episodes. Can you believe that you've put up with me for 48 weeks of taping?
I cannot.
That's amazing. My wife would give you a standing ovation.
Would she?
She would, yeah.
Can we get a video of her doing a standing ovation and we'll just put it up right here, right now?
No.
Okay.
So what I want to talk about first is the first episode or the first interview, or one of the first. I can't remember chronologically where they were.
Yeah.
But Dan Chenier, episode 29, he was definitely not the first. But I love personally talking about health.
Yep.
Whether it's physical health, mental health, what you're putting into your body, those kinds of things. And we talked to Dan about a lot of those things.
Yep.
And we talked about certain subjects ranging anywhere to diet, to exercise, to the proper type of exercise, to chiropractic care. And it was so wide ranging.
Yeah,
that I loved the conversation. And if I were to guess, if I had to pick, and we've had a lot of great discussions with people, but it's probably my number one favorite interview as far as the range of topics and the discussion points of each of them. It's probably my favorite one.
But the best part about the whole...
And we recorded, and I think it was February?
It was in February,
okay. Which,
even
as you know,
might have even been January.
In Winnipeg can be really, really, really cold.
Yeah.
Shout out for my birthday month as well, and my wife's birthday month.
It was minus 27 that day.
So Gregg, who loves the cold,
I love the
water,
cold. Embrace it.
/challenge, embrace the suck. He challenged, of course, Dr. Dan and myself to sit in the snow with no shirt and just swim trunks on for what seemed like 5 days.
Let's cut to the clip.
You're welcome.
We should go get cold now.
Let's get cold.
Let's get cold.
Or
awesome.
Let's get uncomfortable.
Let's get uncomfortable.
Comfort is the enemy to growth.
We can.
Yeah, so I was saying how I did it minus 40, or no, minus 39, and it was, I got frostbite on my feet, and about a week later, I was on the coaster, 4 or 5 days later.
I see that story, you jack.
You sit down.
A week later, I got frostbite.
Just watch out for the yellow snow.
Yeah, don't go in
You're
the pile.
the best.
Don't go in the pile over there.
Watch out. Okay, are we doing snow angels or?
We'll do that at the end.
Okay.
Once you're done in the cold.
So this is where the focused attention from the Wim Hof comes in.
Don't focus on the cold. Focus on your
So
body.
you're not dying. That your body, your trigeminal nerve is telling you that you're going over a snow-capped mountain, and it should sacrifice your toes and fingers, so thus create a forceful constriction in the blood vessels. And that's a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
If you're really going to be dying. But right now, you know you're not going to die. You know warming up is minutes away.
Yeah.
So try and keep those blood vessels open and blood circulating. Okay? Breathe through it. The constriction can be painful, especially in the extremities.
How are you feeling, Tim?
I want to go in the hot tub. Every second of my body's thinking about quitting and going in the hot tub.
Well, you can lay down and do your snow angel. You can go in the hot tub.
So yeah,
None of my body wants to sit in this position.
So give yourself, so open up your arms and legs a little bit more. Let the cold come in. The cold, as Wim Hof says,
That's much better.
Is the window to the soul.
Totally different. It's like night and day.
And now just relax. And let
It's warm in here.
Let the dog jump on you.
It's cold.
You think?
So why don't you let's give ourselves like a sort of a time, like another 30 seconds or minute. Go back into the snow, just so you have a goal and an outcome.
Let's do 30 seconds.
No, go back
We're gonna
into the
lean back
snow
and do
angel.
snow angels.
No.
Yes.
As opposed to like at random, like it's going to end soon, but I don't know when. That's more
I want to hear that random thing you just said.
random. It's going to end soon, but I don't know when.
Okay, 15.
No, I mean like it's going to end in like blank.
Exactly,
And if you answer
in
the
30
question,
seconds.
you'd like
30
30
seconds.
seconds.
30
30
seconds.
seconds.
For what?
Till we do our snow angel.
And then what after
Then
that?
we'll go in the hot tub.
Go warm up.
How long in the snow angel?
You just do a snow angel and then
As
you
long
get
as it looks
Oh, I
good.
like that. Okay. Yeah, I like it.
Okay, keep breathing a little bit here.
All
Now
right, breathing. I
refocus.
forgot to do the breathing.
You forgot to
It's
breathe.
ancestral. So muscles open in your fingers and toes.
This is awesome.
You're probably already starting to adapt.
Yeah. I'm actually my back against the snow. It is awesome.
We'll do the backs in 5 seconds.
No. You're the boss.
4,
Okay, it is starting to. I am getting used to it.
3, 2,
Yeah.
1. Lay back. Insert.
Oh no! Hi. Okay. Oh Lord Jesus, you're a guest.
Let your breathing relax.
And then what?
Okay.
What are we doing next?
You're ready to go in the hot tub.
Yeah. Thank you, Lord. Oh.
Oh, I gotta open it, Tim.
Oh, I love you, Hunter.
Well, at the end of that, though, Tim,
Thankfully,
you
the
got to go in
hot tub
tub.
was. I remember thinking, this hot tub. Oh, I felt so good.
The needles, though, when you get into the hot tub.
I didn't notice too much for needles. I just remember it was cold. So
Yeah.
sitting in, and as Greg correctly pointed out afterwards, I actually didn't do the snow angel.
You didn't do
But
it
it was like,
properly.
I just
you
wanted
laid
to-
back.
I wanted to stay as still as possible. Don't move. None of that. But anyway, so that was just talking about. Shout out again to Dr. Dan.
We're going to get him on for season 2. So I'm going to be working on getting a second conversation with him going.
Yeah.
And we're going to bring up a whole new slew of topics with him. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
We're working on it. And because I'm talking about it now, he has to come back on.
Did you remember to pay the invoice that he sent for the interview?
Yeah, I used your credit card.
Oh, that's what that amount was. Now I know. Thank you.
That's correct. We don't pay our guests, Tim. Don't make our guests feel like they're going to get paid to come on the show, because we do not have a budget. Our budget is 0.
By the way, I like your hat.
Thank you. It's the Blue Jays City Connect hat. Yeah.
It's very nice.
So I want to switch over to our actual first ever interview,
Right.
which I think we posted this one second. I can't remember. We did them out of order, but we did them in order. We posted them out of order, but it was Gregg Zaun.
Yeah.
Gregg Zaun. We did our first
2 G's
with
3
G's, and he wanted to figure out how he could change his name to the 5G Greg.
He wasn't getting good service out in
In
Waka
Cleveland,
Waka,
Ohio,
or whatever.
Yeah. So our interview with Gregg Zaun, I thought, was one of my favorites to start out the interview process that we've been doing. This was our first interview with somebody that was like a celebrity or a famous person, or even just somebody that had notoriety.
Somebody in the public domain.
Somebody that's a public figure.
Yeah.
And like, if you watch this interview, you can tell that me and you are still kind of a little green at it. It was a virtual interview, but I thought that the conversation flowed so well, and we got into some things that I never thought that he would actually talk about.
Yeah.
And my favorite one, which you also had as your favorite one, was the Greg Maddox story. And that's why a guy like Greg Maddox could pitch so much, right? Because he wasn't going full tilt.
No, never. He had the ability to run it up there 93, 94. Go back and look at the footage of him early in his career. But then all of a sudden he learned how to massage the ball. He learned how to put some slick stuff on it, make it move a little bit more.
It's a whole other rabbit trail you got there.
Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
Oh no, I definitely.
We don't want
You would have the
We don't want
insider. I can't.
All I can say is I got hit by something really slimy in my right eye after
From
one
Maddox.
of his changeups dropped 1.5 feet in the last 5 feet of the pitch.
Oh, that's
Oh,
an
no.
awesome. That's an awesome story.
I got hit in the eye with some Vagisil or something. I don't know what it Just saying. And then I'll go, and this will make watching old footage of him even more fun. Not just the highlights, the actual game footage.
Yeah.
There's two types of finger licks. There's I've got a dry mouth because I'm probably on amphetamines.
Okay.
And I'm licking my fingers like this. I'll do it from the side because you can see the depth. It's just one of these little quickies like that. Oh, just to get a little moisture.
Yeah.
And then there's I really got to make a pitch, and it's now I thought that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And then I remember because '97 we played the Braves in obviously in the NL East, and then in the championship. Well, my first wife, she got me thinking about it. I'm like, he's got something on the back of his tongue. I swear to God, because like I said, I got hit with something slimy, and it had to have come off the ball. I don't know unless there's seagulls dropping petroleum-based lubricant from the sky. Something came off that ball and hit me in the eye. And so I remember later that winter, that's when I had an epiphany. My first wife, she was sick. She had the flu. And she put Vicks Vapor Rub on the back of her tongue. And I'm like, you're going to die. She's like, I'm not going to die. It's just Vicks Vapor Rub. She's like, you ever put Vaseline on your lips? I'm like, well, I don't make a habit of it, but yeah. Well, that's petroleum based. The only difference between Vaseline and Vicks Vapor Rub is the menthol.
Yeah.
I was like, holy crap, she's not wrong. And then as soon as she said it, and I realized, I was like, that mother scratch got something in the back of his mouth.
She discovered the secret of Gregg Maddox. he gave some. Actually, if you know anything about baseball, Gregg Maddox is a Hall of Fame pitcher.
Yeah.
And if you know anything about baseball too, sometimes if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
That's right.
And a lot of pitchers have been known to do things like slippery things on their fingers, sandpaper,
anything to doctor the ball up.
Yeah. So. And he told some things that probably have never been released about Gregg Maddox. That he said, he tried to hit a baseball from Gregg Maddox, and there was some very slippery substance that came off the ball or something like that. Right?
Yeah. So the conversation was.
And going back to Greg Zaun, what I appreciate about Zaun is some of our guests are more willing to share everything that they know, and they almost don't have a filter.
Yeah.
And those are my favorite guests, because some people hold things back because either their position or they can't.
They're public eye, and they want to.
But Greg and a couple other ones that we'll get into, they didn't. So the conversation becomes more colorful, therefore more interesting, and especially if you like baseball.
Yeah.
Like if you don't like baseball, when we talk to Greg Zaun, maybe it's not your cup of tea. But if you enjoy baseball, like some of the things he was talking about, Canseco, he was talking about Maddox, he was talking about Halladay, Kevin Brown, who he said was his favorite pitcher to catch.
Yeah, John Gibbons being Sling Blade.
Yeah, so John Gibbons, and he told us a story off air, which was interesting too. But those are for me, the most interesting, right? Because they don't hold back.
Yeah, exactly.
And Greg Zaun was awesome for that shout out. Greg Zaun, I appreciated him as a guest for sure. And I'm going to go on now.
Yeah. What's the next best of part?
The person that also was in the public eye, but he was very open to sharing whatever what was on his mind, was Drew Dudley.
Yes.
So very similar, but he was in a different field. He's not in the field of baseball, although our conversation did go into baseball. That we are in sports in general. But Drew Dudley, who's a public speaker, day one. If you haven't picked up the book, please do. It's a great book.
Yep.
And a couple of funny things that he was talking about. The conversation in general was awesome. Please go watch it again. But other than the interesting things he said, the funny stuff was when we asked him about if the Leafs are going to win a cup. And he said, not too long in the distant future.
Yeah.
He talked about drunk Shakespeare, and then we talked about drunk marathons. And we passed drunk Shakespeare when he went to Chicago.
Did we?
Yeah, we did. I pointed out to you. I guess you weren't paying attention. I said, hey, Greg, drunk Shakespeare. And you just kept eating your hot dog and biking.
I was not eating my hot dog and biking. That would be dangerous. And I was in front of you. How am I going to hear you? I'm in front of you.
Because I yelled at you.
Oh, okay.
Very loudly.
So my favorite part about the Drew Dudley interview was his Blue Jays story about the voice of the Blue Jays, Jerry Howarth.
Yeah.
And the story of his dad and Jerry Howarth. That's awesome, right?
Have you heard my Jerry Howarth story?
No.
No, tell it, please.
Okay, and look, I apologize because the worst is when people do one-up stories. So I'm not trying to do that because I don't think this is any cooler. It just reminded me of this. So the same way you just described how like the voice of your childhood team is I learned about baseball because the Jays were on twice a week on television.
Yeah.
So I learned baseball from Jerry Howarth and Tom Cheek, the play-by-play and color commentary for the Jays for 30 some years until Tom passed away. And then Jerry kept on for 20 more years. But I realized that when you think about it, 162 games a year, I would listen to the radio every single night. Jerry Howarth spoke more words to me than anyone on the planet other than my mom and dad.
Yeah.
And even then it would be close because he would talk for 3 straight hours and I would listen every single night for 162 days a year. And so I found out he was retiring. They announced it very suddenly because he was ill. And I pulled over and cried because he was the link to my dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when I listened to Jerry Howarth, I thought about me in the canoe with my dad, me on the dock, driving to the cottage. It was always me and my dad. So he was the voice of baseball to me. I learned baseball from him. And when he retired very suddenly, I was really upset.
Yeah.
And so I wrote an article called What I Learned About Leadership from Jerry Howarth. I put it on LinkedIn, put it on social media. A couple days later, I get a call and it's like, "Hey, Drew, Jerry Howarth." And it's so weird to hear, like, it because you just experienced it, right?
Yeah.
It's so weird to hear the voice talk about normal stuff. And he just said, it was passed on to me by my daughter who saw it. And I just wanted to say it's the nicest thing anyone's written about me since I retired. And I want to tell you how much I appreciated it. And we had a wonderful little chat. He hung up and I just kind of ran around the room like, oh my God, I just talked to Jerry. Get a call a couple weeks later. He says, my autobiography is coming out. Could I use it as the introduction to my autobiography?
Wow.
So the introduction to Jerry Howarth's autobiography is this article that I wrote. And when I gave it to my dad, he cried, which bugs me because when I gave him my book, he didn't. However, to talk about courage, what Jerry said, is there anything I could do for you? And I said, would you call my dad?
Yeah.
And just say hello. And he said, no. And I'm like, oh. He said, why don't you come to the game? It's going to be Vladdy's first game. This was in May of 2019, maybe.
Yeah.
Why don't you come to the game? I'll get you and your dad tickets and I'll come out and say hello. I'll surprise him. Wow. And so we get to the game. Dad's like, why are we here so early? Jerry comes out and didn't just say hi. 45 minutes of sitting and talking with my dad about Blue Jays, about Blue Jay history. It was the happiest I saw my dad in the last 3 years of his life. He was absolutely beaming. They argued Dave Steve versus Roy Halladay, which are two guys who could actually do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Until they put Dave Steve in MLB The Show, I don't know for sure. I was too young. But he did that for us. Isn't it amazing when someone cares enough to say yes to that?
Wow.
And the thing was, sometimes when you ask, what could I try that might not work, but tried it anyway? If you're afraid to do it for yourself, do it for somebody else.
Yeah.
For some reason, it's a little bit easier when you're like, hey, would you do this for my friend?
Right.
And so I will hold a special place in my heart for that man for my entire life, not only because of what he brought me as a sportscaster, but because of how he treated my dad.
Yeah. So that clip, like, it kind of tugs at your heartstrings a little bit because, you know, this was one of his main memories of his dad, the happiest he saw his dad since before his dad passed away. And Drew Dudley really opened up during the interview. He did a lot of, like you said, talking about drunk Shakespeare and all that kind of stuff. But he also opened up about a lot of things and a lot of feelings, talked about grief, talked about things that we didn't know that we were going to get into, which was great to get into. If you haven't seen this episode, it's a 2-part episode. We've got them both linked here, and you should check them out because I think that Drew is one of the best people to listen to for advice because he speaks to leadership in a way that is more relatable and more, I guess you can say, like, easier for every man to do.
Yeah.
But
And,
anyway.
and if everybody out there does not know, when we do an interview, we each come up with like 5 to 10 questions.
Yeah.
We put them on a piece of paper, and then we start the interview, and we basically fly by the seat of our pants the whole time. And sometimes we'll be like,
sometimes our pants are on fire.
that doesn't work here, and then we whatever, and you do very little editing because you're lazy that way. But no, no, it's because we want the kind of the genuineness of the interview, and that's why we get into things that we weren't even expecting, and all of a sudden we'll ask a question because the response lends to it.
Yeah,
and I think you get a better interview with that. I mean, sometimes it has me sounding like Hunter Biden, but
our interviews are conversational.
Yeah,
and one of the people that commented on our Zach Fontaine interview was like, it was like listening to a conversation and just listening in on a conversation between 3 people, as opposed to like having to pay attention to each question. This was more of just like, oh, there's a conversation going on. I get to eavesdrop in on the conversation.
And we just happen to have the cameras rolling for that. So
yeah,
no, I agreed. Drew Dudley was awesome. Double D.
Day one Drew on Instagram.
I really appreciate that one. For my next choice, I am going to pick Adam Bighill, linebacker, finance guru.
Yeah. Which was your favorite clip? Just like give me the title of your favorite clip.
When he throws his wife under the bus. She was the big spender.
So moving on from kids, and I'm not throwing any of my kids under the bus.
No, because you said you had 3, and some of them are.
They have varying degrees of difficulty in failing. So they say in marriage that people marry their opposites, and one's typically a saver and one's typically a spender. Is that the case in your household?
Probably. Sorry, Christina. No, she probably admit it. I think she admitted that she didn't grow up in a household that where they talked about money, and they had a structure in place per se. And with that being said, I mean, out of when she got her job, she did start a savings plan. She did automate some of her paying herself. But she would tell you that she spent too much, and being young and being single, like, you have the ability to make those mistakes. Right. You do. Should you? Probably not.
Yeah. She's in the same boat as me. I did the exact
same thing. Like, I mean, you
Once
only
you have
live
kids.
once. Like, like she had a couple awesome trips to New York that, if you said, hey, you shouldn't do this, and that means you can't do that. I mean, there's some opportunity costs you got to look at. But like, at the end of the day, if you're always paying yourself, you're going to put yourself in a pretty good position no matter what.
Yeah. Staying on the topic of marriage, they say the number one reason for divorce in a marriage is money related. What advice would you give to a newly married couple to get on the same page immediately?
Yeah, I think budgets really help, just because it's very tangible.
So for me, I'm just going to cut you off there.
Yeah.
For a spender, as soon as we hear the word budget, and this happens to me, as soon as you use that word, it's like a keyword that makes my brain go spinny, 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 and I just tune out, because it seems like like for someone who likes to eat, it seems like the word diet. It's like a curse word,
right? Well, you want to make sure you have common expectations of each other, and being able, at least your budget can be spend all our money or save all our money or anywhere in between. But as long as you guys are both on the same page, you're probably going to have a good working relationship, right? You would probably agree with that?
Yeah, I would.
Now, Christina, yeah. And he has a little bit of a grin on his face, because I asked him, who's the spender? Because he usually a saver and a spender.
And then he let us know who the spender was.
And we're like, who's the spender? And he's like,
rainbow suspenders.
My wife is, so he carries around a budget around and follows her. Would you spend? Actually, yeah, that's what I do too. Anyway, so I really liked Adam Bighill.
Adam Bighill's conversation was interesting because we talked about football, finances, and family. Like, those were the 3 F's that we talked about. And he had great insight onto like why he plays football. He had great insight into why he brought his family to Winnipeg and settled in Winnipeg, and then why he deals with finances.
Kids and finances, because, and I spoke on the episode about that. When I was growing up, wasn't taught how to deal with money.
Yeah.
And now I'm kind of reluctant and not very confident
in dealing with money.
And I typically want to spend it.
Yeah.
I'm a spender because of that, because I'm afraid if I
I
don't
thought you were a
spend
saver.
that goes into a deeper topic, but no, I'm kind of a spender. I want to enjoy things right away because when I was a kid, I didn't get to do them. So if I don't spend, I'm not going to do, and then savings boring.
You're kind of a squirreler. You
Maybe.
squirrel all your nuts,
Yeah.
and then you get rid of all your nuts with the hopes that you're going to be able to squirrel them all back.
Maybe
that's the personality I get from you, is that you build it all up, and then you'll spend it because you want to.
Well, no,
you want to experience everything,
you're simple,
and then you're doing that with the expectation that you're going to be able to build it all.
You're simplifying the conversation. I start with making sure that I have certain things in my savings, giving, those kinds of things.
I'm
and then what's left?
I'm just talking about your savings. Sorry, your trip savings.
Yeah. By the way, last 2 years is last 4 years is the first time I've had investments.
Oh wow!
I didn't have anything before that.
And who's your investment guy?
Adam Bighill. And that was funny because we were talking about teaching your kids, like I was saying.
Yeah.
And then you said, "Are my kids listening?" I won't say them by name, but are my kids listening?
So I want to turn back the dial to a moment in time when Canada, did not allow plastics for a brief amount of time. When in actuality, they did allow plastics.
Right.
So let's show off the plastic ban clip that also got people talking in our stuff, because some people really want to save the turtles. We're going to move on to a different topic. This one, we'll see how much we talk about this one. Plastic ban in Canada for the fellow Canadians, because we aren't only in Canada, we are listened to globally.
Right.
So people that aren't from Canada, let me paint you a picture right now. And by paint you a picture, I mean, I'm going to paint a picture with a wood paint brush on a piece of paper made from trees also, because we're not allowed to use plastic in Canada. When you get a Slurpee at 7-Eleven, and you need to stir it, because it's, when you drink a Slurpee and the slush gets a little hard because you've gotten all the juice out of it, and you go to stir it to get it mixed back up again.
Yeah.
When you stir it with a straw in Canada, the straw moves on the top, but the bottom stays in the exact same place.
Right.
We use paper straws.
Yeah.
We also use what they call bamboo forks.
Yeah. If you don't know what bamboo means, it means break as soon as it hits any substance.
Yeah. Bamboo. It is Australian for breaks instantly.
Instantly upon touching.
Australian or Chinese?
Oh.
Bamboo's from China? Where are we importing our bamboo from? By the way,
I'm sure it's fake.
We can't be fake. We can't have plastic. It has to be real. We can't have plastic in Canada.
Yeah.
So we're importing bamboo from China?
Yeah.
Think about it.
But that's the point. It doesn't make sense, right?
It makes zero sense. And the amount of oil and gas it takes to import this stuff into Canada.
Whoa. That's way too much thinking into the whole thing that nobody needs to do. We just got to realize that the government is concerned about the environment, and we should just give them carte blanche to do whatever they want and don't question the
thing. Now go to Starbucks.
Yeah.
And I drink out of a plastic cup with a plastic lid with no straw, because there's no straws allowed.
But it's a plastic cup.
And you know what's even better? This is the best one, you guys. Everybody's ready for this one. I go to Wendy's.
Yeah.
I order myself a large Coke with cherry, because they have all the flavors. Yeah. I get it in a plastic cup with a plastic lid and a paper straw. And a paper straw. Yeah. And you know what happens to that paper straw after 3 minutes in carbonated beverage?
Yeah.
I start drinking straw.
It disappears.
I get a whole bunch of paper in my mouth. It is ridiculous. The whole paper straw thing is ridiculous. So what happened in Canada is that the federal court system has
So back up. I believe it was Alberta and Saskatchewan who actually
brought it to court.
Brought this case to court, and it basically said, "Listen, there is no proof that what you're doing here with eliminating plastic from these
single-use plastics,
does anything beneficial to the environment or does any harm to either one, right?"
Exactly.
So they basically brought it to court to say this needs to end, and Alberta, this group that was led by these two provinces, won this case. The judge looked at it and said, "Yeah, there is the government has not brought enough proof to the table." And they actually overturned the plastic ban. But what's so okay, go ahead.
So it's been overturned, but it hasn't been removed yet.
Right.
So the plastic ban is supposed to come into play in December. Everybody's already started it last December because you had to get rid of everything before December. But the government has said that they're going to appeal
of course they will.
The decision, and it's not yet over.
Right. Of course they're going to appeal it. But what surprises me so much is the apathy of Canadian individuals who don't seem to care
about the plastic,
about
the paper stuff,
about the paper issue.
Yeah,
and more than only that wouldn't even know the story exists as far as they lost this court case. Literally, a judge, not a moron, an actual sitting judge.
Yeah.
In sitting in a federal seat in this country, looked at the evidence
and said no sense.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And people on, and I want to say the left side of the political equation, don't care.
They think that it's still...
they literally don't care.
Yeah.
And this goes back to I just don't understand some Canadians and their apathy.
Yeah.
Like,
do you know what's funny?
What's that?
You're old enough to remember this.
Maybe.
Remember in the 80s when we used to go to groceries? We used to go to grocery stores, and all of our groceries would be in paper bags.
I believe so, yeah.
In Safeway, you'd get paper bags. And then they're like, no, you're killing all the trees. You're killing all the trees. We're going to move to plastic bags. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to get rid of the paper bags. Yeah. And now... it's like bizarro world out there.
But we make fun of Americans for challenging things and authority, and we make fun of them all the time. Not me, but people.
You've made fun of a lot of Americans. Anybody that's listening, I'll give them your phone number.
I used to be the captain of Club America when I was in high school. Okay. I love a lot of the things that happen in the United States. Not everything is good, of course.
Yeah, everybody has their ups and downs.
But at least they question. But it seemed like we learned this from an event that happened that we won't say, starts with a C. We learned this, that Canadians don't question authority.
They're very submissive.
It's like, if you say it's right, then it must be right. And not only that, we bash people who actually do. Don't say anything bad about it. Don't say anything bad about it. Even when they turn out to be correct.
Yeah.
For some reason, we do not want to, even if they're incorrect, want to question authority.
Exactly.
Like, and it drives me absolutely insane. So the government, so the government then feels they have complete rule to do whatever they want, right, wrong, indifferent. It doesn't matter because they're not questioned on it.
Yeah.
And this is why, in my opinion, the Liberal government has stayed in place for so long, because people don't question. Let's just stick with what we have.
Yeah.
Even if we don't agree with all of it, why question? The turtles. So my wife hates those wooden straws. Does anyone really like the wooden and the papers things, like the straws that are paper and the wood? By the way, did you have when you were a kid?
Yeah.
You ever have, like, before this was all a thing, the little ice cream cup?
That had the little wooden spoon.
And it had the wooden spoon? Yeah. That always reminds me of they were trying to save the planet back then.
And then, like, you could chew on it afterwards. It got chewy.
So they were trying to save the planet back then.
Popsicle sticks were like that, too.
Yeah, that's right. But you wouldn't use it to eat. You'd bite around it.
Yeah, but I would always chew on the popsicle stick at the end.
I never did that.
No?
No. It reminds me of the scene in Tommy Boy.
I would chew on it, and then, like, to the point where it started to fray, and then I'd throw in the garbage.
It reminds me of the line from Tommy Boy. Did you eat paint chips as a kid?
Did you eat a lot of paint chips when you were a kid? Why?
Did you chew on popsicle sticks as a kid, Greg?
I did, but
Yeah.
they weren't painted.
Why?
They were not painted.
I'm a maniac.
And I'm dancing like I've never danced before.
Anyway, so and then all of a sudden we're back to plastic now. I go to the movie theater, plastic straws. It's now it's not a thing because
the next step has to be plastic straws back at 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven, you will be.
My guess is
7-Eleven.
My
you
guess
will be thanking
is
heaven.
the stock has to get
7-Eleven.
They need to sell. If you have any,
You gotta get rid of the
You got to get
paper
rid of the
stuff
stock,
first. Yeah.
and then there's going to be some companies, and this is another round for me. Some companies that have to take extra time for virtue signaling, which we saw during COVID. Some of these restaurants were like, well, we're going to virtue signal. So even though the rules have been abolished, we're still going to do things for an extra 5 months.
Okay, let's finish up this best of episode, Tim.
Okay.
Let me know your last best of for this episode.
The last best of episode for
last best of for this episode.
For this episode, let's go to the episode we have.
Episode.
The episode.
The episode.
For the Sandersons, Nelson.
Yes. Nelson and Fabian.
And his son, Fabian. Awesome, guys. Shout out to Fabian. But we talked to them about some deep things, which I really close to my heart as far as can you be, and this was the question at the end, the big question, can you be a strong, proud Indigenous, Christian Canadian? Because sometimes, at least in the media, they can tend to conflict. If you're Indigenous, you can't be proud of your country, and if you're a Christian, you can't be proud to be Indigenous. But we asked that question. Maybe we should just roll to it. Both of you, when you're part of both communities, how do you manage to stay, let's say, a Christian and someone in the Indigenous community? How do you manage to take the two and blend them so that you're both 100% into both?
Right. You know, it's not that it's a tough balance. There's a lot of First Nation communities, a lot of Métis communities, you know, predominantly some of them Roman Catholic. Obviously, all the things that are going on right now with the Roman Catholic Church. But, you know, in terms of almost trying to establish the difference between the two and, you know, who you are as a person, as an individual, your belief systems, and you know, and really what you model is honestly one of the best ways to try to communicate that and establish that distance, you know. And they had obviously the Pope who apologized on behalf of all of Christendom, which, you know, anybody who knows Catholicism versus Christianity, that's always been a strong debate. And, you know, how you identify, I think, is really important. And you know, obviously not being offensive to anybody who is Roman Catholic, but there are some differences with respect to who you are as a Christian versus somebody who practices Catholicism, you know, in terms of thoughts, perspectives on the Virgin Mary, for instance, or confession of sins to a priest, you know, and those types of belief systems. You know, can you buy your way into heaven? But all throughout the Indigenous communities, you know, there is still a large number who do follow Christianity or Roman Catholicism. So, you know, it's obviously a tough balance when it comes to somebody who's dealing with some hurt and some pain from what the church had caused to them. That is something that, you know, I don't tread, you know, lightly. Well, I do tread lightly on, I should say. And so when you're dealing with somebody like that, you know, who whether they follow the Red Road Anishinaabe teachings, and it's something that you have to handle with care and treat honestly just like anybody else, like any other religion in the world. But realizing that there is that sensitivity there where there's a pressure point, right? Like a cut with salt, where it's going to open up and maybe trigger some things that took place. And honestly, one of the best ways to do it is knowing the history, understanding the history, and letting them know that you know the history, that you acknowledge the things that took place, right? And and with me, you know, I'm very fortunate, you know, with my dad. He was involved in the schooling system, and, you know, I'll let him share about some of the stuff that took place. But when you can't even speak your own language, you know, and if you dial back further to when, you know, somebody who was an Indian had to, have a piece of paper from an Indian agent just to go hunting for his family. And obviously there's worse things that you can go into, but dialing back and not chasing too many rabbits, as somebody who is operating in this, there's obviously a fair bit of, we'll call it conservatism when it comes to how I operate, because obviously I have my beliefs. And if somebody ever asked me, I would love to share it. I'd love to share who I am, what I believe, and that I believe in Jesus. But obviously it's communicating on a whole different level and being careful, because it's so easy to be labeled as just, someone who's a fruitcake or whatever you want to call them, in their systems. And that's sometimes how, outsiders will view you as, and he's one of them, and he just, he wants nothing better than to just come and convert me. No, I just want to show love to you guys. You know what I mean? And that's really what it's about. And obviously what the church I tend to preaches, which is love, accept, forgive, right? And I feel when you do that, people know when you're genuine. They know your authenticity, and they know that you really do care, and and the passion shows, and especially with the work that I do, in terms of helping First Nations to start up companies so that they can get out of any slump, because for too long people have been held back in almost a victim mentality. And it's great to see so many progressive chiefs. And I work with some excellent professionals who go out there and they're so business minded, they're forward thinking, and they only want to see generational legacy in terms of wealth creation, or solid family and legacy through family, as opposed to that generational poverty that they've experienced for so many years. So that's, and like I said, it's something you handle with kid gloves, but at the same token, it's, you need to be so real with people.
If I could go back then to the original question that I asked that Fabian answers for you too, along the lines, you became a Jesus believer, a Christian, and you became in both communities. You were in the Indigenous community with the Métis people, and you were a Christian. How did you manage to be equally and fully part of both groups?
See, in our community, in the Métis community from St. Laurent and from Saint Eustache, there were either Roman Catholic, Anglicans, not so many, but Roman Catholic. But what I didn't like about the Roman Catholic Church at that given period was that there was no focus on me as a child, like maybe because of the color of my skin at that given period in Saint Eustache, Manitoba. But a lot of young brown-skinned boys like me were walking around those streets and that town, not being respected that much from either the nuns or from the priests. And many of our teachers were nuns. So so it really took me away. I was trying to really build a relationship with the Roman Catholic Church, because I loved the little pictures they gave me. Okay.
Yep.
Joseph, Mary, and they were beautiful pictures.
Yep.
But having said that, so I really never got that many of them, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And the priest wasn't that really kind to me. Well, in a way, I kind of like it today, right?
Yeah.
Right.
After what's happened to many of the children that were.
Yeah.
So, but I made I don't know, I followed I really loved, as a boy, I really loved Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something about learning more about him that when we moved to the city, we were still going to Roman Catholic, okay? And I still went. And then when I met my wife is when I actually changed to become a born-again Christian. And she made that big change in me, which is, she's a strong lady.
A good woman.
She worked very hard, and then she really turned me in. But, that's what I enjoy today. And I've been now going to the same church for 30 years.
Wow.
And I've been volunteering, I'd say, for a good 20, 25 years.
That's fantastic.
And I'm there 2 services every Sunday. And I love it.
That's good.
And so we agreed as a panel that you can be.
Yeah.
Because there are some things in the past that were negative, but it is possible. So
Yeah.
if you have any opinions on that, still let us know to this day, and go back and watch the episode, or as I say, pepisode.
Let's be face it.
So that was
one of the words that got created from this show. Let's be face it.
I guess sometimes I have to pronunciate, and that's one of my enunciate. Sorry, and some of the connecting words in a sentence, which is why I slow down sometimes. I have to pronounce all of my consonants. Yeah, and that I'm working on it.
At least you didn't say continent.
That's why I say the tip of the tongue and the teeth of the lips. But I still got to do better. My volume's getting better.
Thanks for watching part 2 of the Gregg and Tim Show Best Of. Next week, we have another part where we talk about a couple more interviews, and we have a few other surprises.
And we get into my new beard.
You have a new beard next episode?
No, but as we go through the show, I developed a beard.
Oh.
So, anyway, have a great day.
Like, subscribe, share, comment.
Yada, yada.
Bye.
Yada.
Thanks for watching the Gregg and Tim Show podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with all your friends. Sharing is caring.